As Kim mentioned, we have a total of 21 major advertisers that participated in this study with a combined annual ad spend over $500 million. The study spanned 4 major categories. We had 10 FMCG participants, which included consumer brands from the grocery, pharmacy and liquor sectors. These results were presented back in November 2016. We had 4 automotive brands. Those results were presented in May this year. And the last part of this study, we've got 3 e-commerce brands that only operate services online. They have no shop fronts, and we have 4 brands from the finance industry. The total ad spend from those 4 categories alone is close enough to 1/3 of the advertising industry. Ebiquity was selected by ThinkTV to conduct this important research study based on our industry experience and knowledge. We have a proven track record delivering world-leading ROI studies, as conducted in the UK for ThinkBox with their Payback 4 Pathway to Profit study. We've worked with major industry groups such as the ANA, or the Association of National Advertisers in America, in particular their 2016 report into media transparency, and Bob Hoffman referred to that earlier. The World Federation of Advertisers, and we undertook a key study into online advertising effectiveness earlier this year. And locally, we've worked with the AANA, the Australian Association of National Advertisers, and again, we worked with them in a seminar around media transparency and accountability, again, earlier this year. Let me spend the next few slides just talking to the methodology behind this study. And I do this quite deliberately. It's just to establish the foundations on which these results are built. We use something called econometric modelling. It is the gold standard approach for linking causal effects for advertising to sales. The aim is to capture everything that might impact sales. Data inputs include external data, such as weather, holidays, economic data, market information around competitive activity, pricing, distribution, and promotions, all advertising by the different media channels themselves, and of course, sales. The data is then modelled by our specialised analytics team, and we've used this common approach for all 21 participants in this study. Results were compiled into 3 separate reports. The brand reports, and these are only accessible and provided the actual participants themselves. The category reports, we presented for FMCG and automotive earlier. We're covering e-commerce and finance this morning. And obviously the full industry report itself. Just to clarify some of the definitions, TV includes TV sponsorship, online video includes catch-up TV, long form, as well as short form, such as YouTube. Social, as defined here, is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Let me try and provide what I can best do, a very simple example for the modelling process that's involved. Typically, we need 3 years of series data. So we need 3 years of the most granular data we can get over time. The top graph you're looking at is sales. The grey area that you can see, that's known as base sales, or those sales that are generated in the absence of promotions or media activity. They've been established by past brand activity. When we start to look at the explanatory variables, such as price, in this instance, we can see there were 3 discounts that were applied. And we can see the movement in sales in the top graph. The 3 peaks in total sales, that black line that's showing those 3 peaks, you can see are different though. So we can work out that price alone is not driving sales, so we start to look for other variables that might be driving the sales line. We then look at promotions, and we can see here that there are 2 promotional periods which help explain the second and the third peak. And we can see why they are higher than the very first peak itself. Then we start to look at media and advertising campaigns. And we can see that there was a campaign that was run, if you like, at the time of the third peak in sales. And we can see there that that explains why the third peak is higher than the first and the second. So the idea is about isolating all the variables to understand what drove the sales peaks. The green area that you see is the sales contribution from media or from advertising. If we divide the cost of that advertising and media to the actual sales generated, we actually have something called ROI, the return on investment, or the efficiency of the media spend made. So that was a quick lesson. Let's get to the top line findings of the payback study itself. The first headline, and it's an important one, advertising does grow brands. I think Bob referred advertising is dead, that someone claimed. Far from it. Regardless of category, on average, every dollar invested in advertising results more than $1 in revenue. Across all our 21 brands analysed, and we had major advertisers in this study, major high-profile brands, there is clear evidence to demonstrate that advertising pays back. And I think this is an important point for the 1,000 people or so that are in this room, whether you're an advertiser, you're an agency, media owner, whoever, these results matter. Advertising works and adds real value to this business. If we start to look at the efficiency by media channel, we can see across the 21 brands that we actually studied, TV is the most efficient. If we index all the return on investments, the ROIs, to the TV's results, we can see that TV is almost double the efficiency of the next most efficient channel, being search and then radio, and more than 3 times efficient than the other media types themselves. Now, we should note here that Ebiquity recognises the synergistic effects of different media working with one another. One media typically is not working alone. It works with 1, 2, 3, or 4 other types of media channels. These results actually were not isolated in the study in terms of trying to understand all the combinations, but are accounted for within the results. One of the reasons for TV's greater efficiency, or its high ROI, is its longer retention rate. That is, the prolonged effect of advertising on consumer purchase behaviour. TV, the blue line in this graph, indicates that on average, it continues to drive sales for 10 weeks, whilst other media channels stop generating sales after about 4 to 5 weeks. Now, bear in mind that these are averages. Sometimes we only see an impact in the week of activity, whilst some of the best campaigns continue to impact sales beyond a year. But the retention factor and retention rate is an important element in driving return on investment. In terms of the categories that were under measurement, we actually got very consistent results across the 3 of FMCG, automotive and finance. The results were consistent for the brands within each of those categories. So, for the FMCG, automotive and finance, the efficiency ranking of the media channels is consistent. That is, for example, where TV is the highest performer for the automotive category, that is also the case for each of the automotive brands within that category. And again, that was consistent for automotive and finance. However, e-commerce results for our study represent 3 different industry types. The 3 participants in this group, one was operating in travel and tourism, one in online dating, and another offering comparison services. Results for each media channel are unique to each individual business. That is, the media ranking within each of those different categories was different. And so the average is the average, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the pure results of each of those individuals. What we did see, though, was search was a key component for them. So, media drives brand growth. Let's size the impact media activity had on sales for each of the 4 categories under measurement. For FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, we found that promotions and in-store activities played a key role in that particular industry sector. Very concentrated retail environment, and promotions and in-store activities are the cost of doing business, and a very important one. But still, media was also very important and contributed 3% of sales. Now, 3% doesn't sound like a lot. We made this comment before. This is an industry that's worth $125 billion. 3% counts. In a particular industry like that, where eking out a percentage of growth is really tough and really important, that sales and media activity works hard. For the automotive sector, we saw that media delivered a 12% contribution to new car sales. And the new car sales value in that particular category is worth $41 billion. Almost half of e-commerce sales are due to media activity, and we'll break this down and have a look at this in a bit more detail shortly. The media contribution of finance was 11%, similar to that of automotive. So we've now sized the importance of media for each of these categories. We're now going to look at this in more detail, the ROI numbers by category, by media channel itself. Firstly, FMCG. The ROIs differ by category as we go through this, but you'll see that the ranking is pretty consistent. For FMCG, only TV delivered a positive ROI. For each dollar spent, a $1.70 return. And you can see the other media channels rank listed there. For automotive, all media channels deliver a positive ROI, with TV, radio, search and cinema leading the way. E-commerce is more unique. As you recall, I mentioned that there were brands that were in very different industry types. So these ROIs reflect the average. However, the results making up the average did differ. That is, the rank order of media channels did vary, but search was very key to two of those brands. You'll probably also notice that we've only got 4 ROI figures here. Within this study, not all participants invested in all media channels, and therefore some ROIs could not be reported. For finance, TV led the way with a very strong ROI, whilst the efficiency of online display was low. So ROIs are crucial to understanding the payback from your media spend, but to give them context, we actually need to look at the level of media spend. It is possible to get a great ROI by spending a very little amount of money and getting a little bit of a return. So getting that in context is important. As you recall, media activity delivered 3% of FMCG sales. Of that 3% of sales, 82% of those sales were driven by TV, which came from 78% of the average media budget, delivering a positive TV ROI. So TV working hard. For automotive, media activity delivered 12% of new car sales. Of that 12%, 81% of those new car sales were driven by TV, which came from just 53% of the average media budget, again, delivering the high ROI for TV. For e-commerce, media activity responsible for almost half of all sales. Breaking this down, search is the key component. Search accounted for 58% of all media-driven sales, which came from 30% of the average media budget. Again, hence the strong ROI for that particular media type. Another interesting insight around the advertising role that it plays with search is that we found that 20% of paid search was actually driven by TV. Nearly all of it by TV. I guess simply stated, if people know who you are, they can go and search for you. For finance, media activity delivered 11% of sales. And of that 11%, only 6% of those sales were driven by digital media, which came from 27% of the average media budget. We can see TV working hard here, but digital not working hard, far from it. So I want to drill just slightly deeper into that 27% number. Of the 27% spent on digital in the finance budgets, we can see that online display accounted for nearly all of this spend. In this case, 94%, 6% to online video. The return of investment of only 40 cents for every dollar spent reveals an overinvestment in this media channel, and that is an understatement. So, in summary, lots of numbers thrown at you. Let me try and wrap up. Advertising investment pays back. It's an important fact. TV is the most efficient media channel. TV effects last longer. For FMCG, TV is the crucial sales lever outside of promotions and in-store activity. For automotive, all advertising delivers positive ROI, a terrific story there. For e-commerce, again, probably no surprise, search is crucial. Media helps drive paid search, and that really was seen to be coming from TV alone. For finance, reconsider level of online display spend in this particular category. And I think an important concluding statement, as this payback study has revealed, not all advertising is equal. Measuring their business outcomes is critical for all advertisers and agencies in this market. Thanks very much.